So I'm absolutely delighted to be here. As Mark said, I was appointed to Catch as chair in the Health Services Research, and I moved to Sheffield in February and brought quite a lot of my research programs with me. And I'm absolutely delighted how many people I've seen here today who have participated in two of the recent projects, the Nano Project and Cobalt. And I'm really looking forward to continuing the work that we've started with those projects. And also those of you I've not met before, I would love to work with you in future. And what I'm going to do in this few brief slides is give you a bit of a flavour of the so Mark's told you about the ambitions of the centre, and Jeff before that was giving you a flavour of the sort of way that they work. And what I'd like to introduce you to is some examples of the sort of approaches that my group use and that we've brought to Sheffield, and the ways that we could work with you to create novel interventions to support people to live well. Okay, so when I'm asked what I do, I often describe it as making creative interventions, because I'm not a technologist, and so I come at things from understanding people and the context in which they live, or the context in which they would like some assistance, which might be not in their home, it might be outside, it might be communicating with other people. So I start with working with people. And to me, that's really paramount, because if you want to create something that people will actually use, then you need to understand their life and their day-to-day sort of activities. And the priority for the work that I do is really about maintaining and supporting autonomy and independence. Basically, the technology should be useful, functional, and it should meet a need and enable you to keep doing things that you want to do, whatever that might be. And again, I think Jeff's talk about the bathroom activities was really illuminating of some of the things that people need to and want to be able to do for themselves. Also, the approach we use is really about making the most of what people can do for themselves, maximising their skills, and also minimising the negative or the detrimental impact of the things that they can't do. And especially I do a lot of work with older people or people who develop dementia, and that's really interesting to work with the cognitive profiles, because you find a lot of things are still working perfectly fine, and you need to make the most of those. Another thing that I learned really early on, and I'll give you an example, and you can come and see some of the systems out in the home lab, is making things intuitive and easy to use. And as a non-tech person, I can totally understand that, because I hate anything that I can't just pick up and instantly see what to do with it. And I know that that's how most people come at technology. And also, a lot of the work that I do isn't really just concerned with the functions of everyday life and the basics. It's about the things that make life worth living, the things that give you enjoyment and pleasure, that you can make you laugh or give you some sense of achievement. And so one of my priorities is also making things that are engaging and appealing and that you actually want to interact with. So I've picked some examples, and as I said, for a long time I've worked with people who have dementia. So for over 20 years, and the first half of that was technology free, and then the last 12 years has really tried to adapt the availability of various technologies. And for me, as I say, understanding people, for me the prime understanding with dementia is actually understanding this as a cognitive problem, not a behavioural problem, not a personality problem, but actually a cognitive problem, because actually that's what it is. The damage that happens in people's brains affects their ability maybe to think, to remember, to plan, and that's where our approach starts. So we need to understand how someone's cognitive functions have changed, which ones have changed, and which ones haven't, so that we can work around them. We also recognise that you need to put the person who needs the intervention at the centre of the development, but also, and this applies to many, many conditions, there will always be other people involved, other people either in the family or professional caregivers, and you need to see the dynamic and the way that they interact with each other, and also how they will interact with the technology. So this is one of the really important things that I've discovered from working in dementia. You're not working just with the person alone. You've got a lot of infrastructure around them. So one of the projects, this was one of the early ones, and you can see it out in the home lab, was called Circa. And I mention it because I think it illustrates a lot about the approach that we took and how we learnt to apply technology in this space. So in this particular case, we looked at the problem of communication, which we kept being told people with dementia have a communication problem. And so we looked at what exactly was the difficulty. And the problem was people have a working memory problem. In other words, they can't keep track of a conversation as it's going along. So we decided that we needed to remove that as an obstacle and work with what people could still do, and basically have used technology. In this case, we were using touch screens to present stimuli that the people, this would be the basis of the conversation. Now, touch screens, there's probably hundreds in this room, but when we started this back in early 2000, 2001, they weren't so common, and trying to convince people why a touch screen was a good idea, because you didn't need a mouse or keyboard, was a bit more of an uphill struggle than it is today. But we ended up, and you can see the interfaces, but we put a lot of work in making something that was accessible. So we have photographs, music and videos, and I'm not going to show you the clip because I don't have time, but we have hundreds of hours of footage of people using the system. Particularly, we wanted people with dementia to be able to use it. And one of the most powerful findings is that for caregivers, seeing the person controlling the system, making choices, informing them about historical events, etc., is actually really the most powerful thing from the research. Now, following that, the success of that, we were inspired to try and make games for people with dementia. We thought that the touchscreens would be useful, and also it would give people something they could do on their own. So this is the sort of autonomy and the achievement. And I will give you just a little flavour of how we did this work. So what you will see in the first, you'll spot us trying out different ways to remind people and prompt them to keep interacting with the screen. So all the people you're going to see had never used the computer before they came and did the projects.
Okay. There you go. Expert.
Touch it.
That's it.
Maybe it's just fair.
Yeah. Yep, just touch it. Just two. Perfect. Perfect score. That's it. And then just touch the gun to shoot the ducks. That's it. Very good. That's it, you've got them all.
So what you could see there was examples. We were interested in how people learnt. This is just some more of our participants that we've had. And one of the reasons that we use video a lot is so we can be not intrusive, but see how people explore the screen, how they learn to use things, what things they respond to, if it's sound, if it's movement, if it's colour, what positions do they go back to the same place, and so on. And so we've been doing this for quite a long time. And as I say, behind me you can see both of those projects, and you're welcome to come and try them out. Following on from that, we then took that learning and we did the NANA project, which is quite different. It's not to do with dementia, but it's more to do with, again, taking functionality of touchscreens to have something people could have in their home. We've had over 400 older people help with that, and I'm delighted that one of our participants, Lily Wilson, is here today, and she's here to demonstrate the NANA system. So if you'd like to go out in the home lab after, Lily can show you how to use it. But what we wanted to do there was work with older people to make something they would be happy to have in their home. They could use every day to keep track of what they're eating and drinking. It also does things on mood, cognitive function, physical activity. The person in the picture, we also did a piece of work with people who have dementia and found that it was very simple for anybody to use. Finally, I was going to tell you about Cobalt, and this really illustrates what we've done as a sort of an outcome from these other projects, is to take the learning about how to engage with people. And I've emphasised the participants who are older, but we also do a lot of work with services and staff in services, because often they're the people who are handed the technology to use. And so in Cobalt, we've been working very hard to bring everybody together, and we've now got a set of tools for engagement, which we're making available primarily through Catch, to work either with the industry or with service providers. And they're tried and tested techniques. If there's people in the audience who've been to some of our events, who can probably tell you what it was like to participate, but we know that they're really successful techniques for getting people together in a room and actually moving way beyond anything like a focus group to actually really understanding how people approach technology, what they get from it, what they want from it. And we've added at the bottom, and again, if I'd had longer, I would have shown you one of my favourite video clips, which is one of our Cobalt participants, a gentleman called Brian Malone, who has dementia. And he has been a speaker in our project. And I've got a lovely clip, but it's 4 minutes long, so I didn't have time. But basically, Brian talks about how being in Cobalt, he went from having completely abandoned any use of any technology in his daily life, and now he has an iPhone, which he uses more than 20 apps, and he books his own travel, and he goes around Scotland. He's also given talks internationally, and he really, as he says, he's going to die with dementia, but he's going to live with it first. And to me, that's one of, helping one person has been so inspiring, I think, is really sums up what we're trying to do. So this is just to show you the sorts of events that we've had, people having fun with technology, and we hope that in the future you'll be working with us to have fun with technology too. So thank you very much.